Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting via virtual means. Participants may access this meeting through the remote meeting link as posted on the meeting agenda and through the town's online calendar. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by raising their hand or otherwise signaling their intent to speak. This meeting will be recorded. Please take care to mute your microphone unless you have been recognized by the chair. We will now confirm attendance of members. Please respond with present if you are on the call. Elise Mayalowski.
Present.
Lucia Lopez.
Present.
Matthew Ronca.
Present.
Michael King.
Present.
Parker Happ.
Present.
Jane Moran. Karen Wills.
Present.
Vikasath Prati.
Present.
And Rob Benson is obviously here. Just staff, John Gelsich, I saw on.
Present.
And Lori St. John.
Present.
All right, great. So if anybody sees Jane join, just somehow give me a hand wave or something, let me know. So I'm going to jump right into our agenda. One second.
Rob, do we want to just announce to anyone out there that 37 East Street and 0 Benson Road have already requested a continuation? And if they're here for that, they might want to jump off.
Yeah, I think John just did it for us. But
Sorry.
if anybody's on the call for 0 Benson Road or 37 East Street, which is Labor's Training Center, those hearings are going to be postponed for tonight. The applicants asked for continuance to the next meeting. So if you're here specifically for just those agenda items, we won't be talking about them tonight.
And through the chair, just to clarify that the Benson Road actually continued to December 2nd. They didn't even want to get into November. They wanted some more time.
Okay, thanks. I think I just closed the agenda, so I'm pulling it back up. Sorry, as I'm clicking around here. Accidents happen.
Oh, you're looking for that by next meeting? You mean the next regularly scheduled, but not the MBTA meeting, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think next meeting is kind of off schedule, which will be next week, which will be the MBTA meeting, kind of just dedicated for that. All right, we're back in business. So Wilson Street, just to go by one, I'm going to just go through the agenda. 1A, Wilson Street road damage discussion. They are not ready to have the conversation tonight. They're, I guess his title is engineer / surveyor, needs more time to respond to feedback from, was the PAR group that did the review. So we're going to continue. This isn't an item we need to officially continue, but it's going to be on an upcoming agenda. So the first thing for us to really talk about is bond reduction request for Chamberlain Whalen. Is anybody from Toll Brothers on the call?
I am, yes.
Hey, Ted, how are you?
Doing okay. Sorry about last week. There was some travel delays. Or last meeting, excuse me.
All right. Would you like to give kind of a description or overview of what you're looking to have done?
Sure. So Whalen Chamberlain subdivision is one that we purchased, and forgive me if I don't have the year right, but I think in 2022, with the roads essentially fully complete through binder course, we have constructed and sold, I believe, 28 of 29 homes within the subdivision. We are preparing to apply top course to the roads. There are some other ancillary punch list items that we need to complete. However, we've completed a significant amount of the bonded work and would like to request a reduction from its current amount to the amount put forth, which I believe is $176,000. And I guess I'd add to that, this was reviewed by the town's engineering consultant. I believe he had some recommendations that we are accepting of. So his revised total was, sorry, 280.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the number I was looking for, is the 289,032 from the peer review consultant. Is there any questions from any of the board members? Go ahead, Matthew.
I think we were about to get to that, but the applicant was accepting of the peer review. Is that where we were settling?
Yes, that works for us.
No questions then, Rob.
All right, I think everything, from my point of view, I think everything's in order here because of our peer review consultant did the estimation, so I don't think there's really much to discuss or poke holes in. So I'd like to entertain a motion that the planning board reduce the bond amount of the Chamberlain Wayland subdivision project from $425,592 to $289,032.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Vic. All right, roll call vote. Elise Malowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. And did anyone see? I don't see Jane yet. So it passes, and that is it's all set.
Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is also from Toll Brothers. Ted, are you?
I'll keep rolling.
All right, great.
So Newberry Glen subdivision off of Blueberry Road is under construction. We have completed through binder course on the first 6 lots of that subdivision. We continue to work and should pave the next handful of lots here in the coming weeks. But would like to get lot release on those first 6 lots so that we can start construction on the homes. So I've filled out, I believe, forms K and G and submitted to you that describe that included an estimate of a bond, which was reviewed by PAR, excuse me. And while their number is significantly higher than the estimate I submitted, I am accepting of that number. And if that's what the board chooses to do, willing to post the bond for that amount.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, John.
We have PAR on if there's any questions from the board. I also just want to point out that I did change the thing that's on your screen right now. We got a revised one from PAR just before the meeting. So this is the revised one. It was over $3 million for the remaining work. Now it's down to $2,686,000. So I just want to call that out in case anyone had reviewed the materials beforehand.
Could you give me the exact number, John?
$2,686,000.
Oh, okay. Is there any questions from anyone on the board?
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Lucia.
In terms of the process, does the bond come in first before the Form K is signed?
So I think we need to modify the language of the, when we get to a motion, that's from the packet. So my understanding is we've already done the Form K, but we can't release the Form K. We shouldn't release the Form K to the applicant until the bond is in place.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, John.
So the motion includes to establish the bond and then endorse the Form K for these lots. So I think what Rob is talking about is that since this is an existing subdivision, there's certain steps that a subdivision has to go through in order to release the lots. But since this subdivision has already been built out, that process has already been, for the most part, done, aside from establishing this bond for the new roads. So it's really just kind of a formality of establishing the bond amount. And then and then in the motion, it says the board will endorse the Form K contingent upon submission of a appropriate performance guarantee or bond.
Okay, so the language in the motion is correct.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Just the amount needs to be added.
Yep. Any other comments from the board or
Yeah, through the chair.
go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I was just reading on the materials that we got, so you're gonna see it where it says has completed work on the roadways associated with the completion of the subdivision. I'm not really sure what that actually means, because I know there's only a partial road through there that's only paved, and I'm not sure what that is in proximity to the rest of the lots, and the rest of it's just all dirt going through. So for those on the call, I live on Blueberry, so the construction is happening a couple houses away from me. But so I'm just kind of curious as to what does that actually mean that they've completed the road, because I know there's not a completed road. I know there's a partial road.
So through the chair, I can answer that. Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
John.
They can either finish the road or provide the bond that provides the money to the town to finish the road should the developer abandon the property.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's one or the other. They either finish the roads or provide a bond.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yep.
And I would also point out that we're requesting release for 6 lots of the 20 within the subdivision. My intention would be to come back for the next portion once the binder is complete in front of those and hopefully reduce that bond at the same time, which should be fairly soon, but wanted to get these 6 moving.
Okay. If there's no more questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion that the planning board establish the bond amount for Elmwood Farms 3 at $2,686,000. Further, I move that the board endorse the Form K for lots 6A, 7A, 8A, 9A, 45A, and 46A as shown on the approved subdivision plan, contingent upon the submission of an appropriate performance guarantee or bond in the previously determined amount to the principal planner.
So moved.
Thanks, Matthew.
Second.
Thanks. I'd like to entertain a motion. A roll call vote. Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikasath Pratzi,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So approve A&R Plan 9 Legacy Farm North, 67 East Main Street. Is the applicant on?
Dan Bremser for the applicant.
All right. Dan, if you'd like to give us an overview of what you're trying to do.
Very good. My name is Dan Bremser. I'm a land surveyor with Hancock Associates in Marlboro. This plan is a little different compared to most that you see. We're doing it as an A&R plan because we are effectively changing some lot lines, but we're really just creating math for the perimeter of the original lot and the land that was abandoned between the lot and Legacy Farms Road North. So the main property where the house is, which is unshaded, is the description of that is the boundary of the original lot back when Frank Land Road still existed in front of it. The two hatched areas, we have two different types of hatches that are running about 45 degrees different from each other. The 45-degree hatch that's closest to the lot, that original lot, is the half of the road closest to that lot. What technically happens when a road is discontinued is the ownership of the road basically returns to the abutter from the center line of the road. And to make things a little more complicated, there are two record owners to that original lot, which is the Roger N. Mezet Trust and then the Marilyn J. Mezet Trust, which each owned 50%. Now, across the street from where Franklin Road was, there's a small parcel there that we labeled as Singletary Farm LLC, now or formerly. And there's also two other pieces of Singletary Farm LLC on the east side of Legacy Farms Road North. So the piece that's on the west side, it gets the other half of Franklin Road, plus it also gets half of, I just got to move my plan down here so I can see it, Peach Street. So that's the other type of hatching, is the portion that they're getting. So effectively, this plan shows two lots, shows the original lot for lot 9, plus the area that was abandoned to the center line. And then on the other side of the lot, that lot remainder there was called E1A. So just to keep things as clear as mud, we named that new parcel lot E1A-1. And so what we've listed on here is the area of the lot, the area of the discontinuance, and then the total area for the two parcels. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from any of the board members? Being just an A&R plan, I don't, an A&R, an approval not required, modification of the lot lines, I don't have a lot of questions. If there's no other questions from the board, John, do you have anything to add before we get ready for a vote?
No, this is pretty standard boundary plan kind of a thing. It doesn't have any frontage or lot area issues, so it appears to warrant an endorsement from the board. And I realize in the memo, I did not put motions for this or the next item. So if the board is looking for a motion, it could just be that the board it moves to endorse the A&R plan.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'd like to entertain a motion that the board endorses the A&R plan for 9 Legacy Farms North, 67 East Main Street.
So moved. Second.
Thanks, roll call vote. Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. All right, thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Take care.
So 24 Chestnut Street, What do we, is the applicant on for 24 Chestnut Street?
Yes, I am here. Hi.
Hi, Rick. I'm thinking this is just purely an administrative thing, but could you give an overview? Could you give just a brief introduction of what you're looking to have done here?
Sure, I would agree. I believe it is administrative. As the board, I think, is aware, the subdivision has been approved. The way your sort of procedure works in town is once it's approved, we then need to go to the select board to get the street name approved, the building department to have street numbers issued, and that then all needs to be put on a set of Mylar plans, which then need to be presented back to the planning board for your endorsement. So all that has happened. The name has been approved, the numbers have been issued, the Mylar, and the form, I forget the name of the E maybe, has been submitted. And so at this point, I think we're just looking for you to endorse those plans.
All right. John, do you have any additional information here?
Nope.
Is there any questions from anyone on the board? All right, I'd like to entertain a motion that the board endorse the definitive subdivision plans for 24 Chestnut Street.
So moved.
Thanks, Matthew.
Second.
Thanks, Parker. Roll call vote. Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. All right, we're moving right along. We're
Through the
on,
chair.
Thank you.
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Can I just interrupt? So with this subdivision plan and the Form K, board members are going to need to come into the office and sign because I can't do this on your behalf. I can do the A&R, but I can't do the other ones. So I just want to give you all a heads up that we are open until 7 o'clock tomorrow and open until 2 on Friday. So please stop by and sign these things when you have a chance, please.
Good. Thanks for the thanks for making it known that we have to come in and sign it. All right, moving on to item 1.6 in our agenda, meeting minutes for September 23rd and October 7th. Any comments? Questions? Matthew, go ahead.
Are these, I didn't see them in the folder. I still don't see them. Do we have either?
Yeah, it looks like they're not in there. I know that the October 7th were not ready yet, but I thought that the 23rd were. So we'll have to do them next meeting.
Did those go in last meetings maybe?
Let's see. Nope.
All right, so I think we're gonna skip over approving meeting minutes. All right, let's jump to. Do we need to do anything to continue 0 Benson Road or
Yes.
30?
Vote to continue and then vote to extend, or vote to continue and extend the decision deadline for both.
Okay, so 0 Benson Road, we want to continue the hearing to December. Was it 2nd?
Yeah, I believe so.
And decision deadline
To December 16th.
All right, let's try to get this. So I'd like to entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 0 Benson Road to December 2nd and extend the decision deadline to December 16th.
So moved.
Thanks,
Second.
Karen. Thanks, Matthew. All right, roll call vote. Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikas Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Ensign is a yes. All right, 37 East Street, which is also known as Laborers Training Center. When do we want to extend the public hearing to? Continue the public hearing to?
So the public hearing to November 4th, and then the decision deadline to, I want to say the 11th, but I just want to make sure. Yes, November 11th, which is a holiday, but that's okay.
All right.
And sorry, Rob, that's just for the stormwater management permit, not for the site plan. Site plan doesn't need to have the decision continued.
All right. For the stormwater management plan, I'd like to continue the public hearing to November 4th and the decision deadline to November 11th.
So moved.
Thanks, Parker.
Second.
Okay.
Thanks, Matthew. All right, roll call vote. Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikas Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. So next on our agenda is,
Sorry, Rob, through the chair. Did we just do the stormwater management permit, or did we do both?
we just did the stormwater management permit.
Okay, so we need to continue the hearing of the site plan, just not the decision.
Okay. I'd also like to entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for the site plan permit. Is that the right word? Permit?
Just site plan is fine.
For the site plan to November 11th. I mean, November 4th, November 4th.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. Roll call vote. Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikas Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. Sorry about that. I should have been able to get that all in one vote, but we got it done. All right. So item 4 on our agenda, we're kind of flying through here, but this is 48 to 52 Main Street, 6 Cedar Street, major project site plan and stormwater management permit. So at this time, we don't have a peer review completed at this point. So what I'd like to do is have the applicant introduce the project, give John an opportunity to provide staff review, potentially schedule a site walk. So let's open it off by giving the applicant an opportunity to introduce the project. Who's speaking for the applicant?
I'll be speaking for the applicant. My name's Neil Bingham. I'm counsel for the applicant for the law offices of Jerry C. Efron. I'm joined here by several people, including 2 of the ownership group, John Parsons of SVN Parsons Commercial, sitting across from me, if you can see, and Brendan Giblin of Giblin Properties Incorporated. We're going to go through a little bit of a presentation, including having some of our engineers and others present. We promise efficiency and that we will be through this very, very quickly. But by the application, we're proposing the demolition of the existing structures on the property addresses that you've identified and the construction of a new 3-story mixed-use building that will include retail on the first floor and 60 residential units on the second and third floors. Now, in leading up to the decision to file these applications, we did a lot of due diligence, meeting with town staff and others, but including the then building inspector, Chuck Cadlick. And at that time, we asked Chuck to take a look at our plans and to give us his opinion as to whether or not the project that we're proposing was something that would be as of right or not. And on April 25th, 2024, he sent me an email, which I have and which has been made part of the file, in which he confirmed that he agreed with my view of the world, which was that the plan complied with section 210-20.1 of the Hopkinton bylaw, and that the project was as of right. I'm also pleased to note that during the course of the last year that we've been working on this project, we've been before the Historical Commission, and the Historical Commission has now issued notices of release with respect to both of the property addresses that are at issue here. If I could, I'd just like to introduce the team who will be presenting today. And each of them will just be a few minutes, and I imagine we're going to get through this quickly. But we're going to lead off with Brendan Giblin, who I've already introduced, and he's sitting to my right. After Brendan, Eric DeBrule of Bowler Engineering is going to quickly go through a review of the site plans. Sean Kelly of Chapel Engineering is going to do an overview of the traffic study that we commissioned. And then Matt Merva, who's sitting with me here, also of Bowler Engineering, will discuss the landscape design. Finally, our Richard Rankin of Rankin Associates will discuss the agricultural design. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Brendan.
Great. Neil, thank you. So as Neil mentioned, Main Street Crossing is a joint venture between myself as principal from Brendan Properties and John Parsons of Parsons Commercial Group. Both John and I are local business owners, operators, and developers. We've developed a number of projects both together and individually throughout the state as well as outside of the state. For this particular site, as local developers, we feel a tremendous responsibility for the redevelopment of this site. It's a prominent location on the corner of Cedar and Main Street. And professionally, we feel as though it's a great opportunity to enhance what is already a beautiful streetscape. So our approach to the development was to create a project team that shared a similar vision with us, and partner with professionals such as Bowler and Rankin Associates that are really tops in their fields. So early on, we engaged Bowler and Rankin and created, what was our feasibility study, just to be certain that what it was that we were designing fit kind of squarely within this downtown business district on all levels. So early on, our conceptual plans were confirmed to kind of meet that criteria. And then Rich really got started formulating the plans, which we'll be presenting with you tonight. Our vision was for the design to fit with a lot of the architectural details and really kind of, mesh in with some of those details, from the streetscape. So John and I look forward to the rest of the presentation, at which time that concludes. We're open to any remaining questions. But at this time, I'll turn it over to Eric from Bowler to run through the civil.
Thank you, Brendan. Again, for the record, Eric DeBrule, Bowler Engineering. We can. Perfect, thank you. So we'll just take a quick minute to orient everyone to the existing site. I'm sure we're very familiar with it, but the site is effectively at the northeast corner of Cedar and Main Street, fully within the downtown business district. It's comprised of about 1.35 acres across two fully developed lots. The northwest corner lot is an existing residential lot, and the second lot is the former Hopkinton drug property with the associated parking. There are 4 existing curb cuts that serve the existing site, 1 off of Main Street and 3 off of Cedar. The 1 off of Main Street serves the upper parking area of the drugstore. There's 2 off of Cedar that serve the drugstore and 1 off the residential property. Just for some context, as the presentation goes along, There's about 15 feet of grade change through the existing site. And for reference, the existing Main Street driveway is about 15 feet higher than the Cedar Street driveway. The proposed project, we're essentially proposing to demolish the entirety of the site. And again, what we're proposing is a building that's a 3-story mixed-use building, comprised about 6,800 square feet of retail and 60 residential units. Rich, if you're able to switch the slides. Perfect. So again, site access under the proposed condition, we're providing 2 driveway locations, 1 full access on Main Street, and that serves the parking for the retail as well as shared public spaces. At the very far end of that Main Street parking lot is access to the parking garage for residential parking. We've also consolidated the driveways on Cedar Street and provide a full access driveway at the most northerly corner of the site, and that provides access to the residential parking at the lower parking garage. From a parking compliance standpoint, we're required 100 spaces where we're providing 122. And the thought process there is that that additional parking would be provided for shared public parking off of Main Street. The existing site's very well served by existing sidewalk infrastructure from a pedestrian standpoint. So we're proposing accessible pathways not only to the front retail portions along Main Street, but also a path into the amenity spaces within the courtyard, which I think Matt will get into in a little bit more detail. Very high level on stormwater management and utilities. Under existing conditions, the existing site essentially just sheet flows either untreated into Cedar Street or is captured by a couple of catch basins and then again untreated and sent into the municipal stormwater system. We're proposing to capture that stormwater, send it through deep sump hooded catch basins through a treatment unit before then discharging it. So from a treatment perspective, we'll be significantly improving stormwater for this property. And then we're also able to provide additional green space. So we are reducing impervious surface, which provides 2 benefits. We can obviously give back some green space to amenity spaces and screening and buffering, but also reduces peak runoff rates from a stormwater perspective. So in the end, a much better project from a stormwater management and treatment perspective. And then obviously the utilities on this property are very well served by existing infrastructure. We will be providing brand new connection points, but from Main Street, we'll have new water service for fire and domestic, and then new sewer, gas, and electric for coming off of Cedar for the other utilities. So again, we just wanted to leave it very high level. Obviously, the project will be peer reviewed, and at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Sean Kelly to discuss traffic considerations for the project.
Thanks, Eric. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Sean Kelly with Chapel Engineering. I'd like to just give a brief overview of the traffic study that we conducted, and I'm sure we'll be going over it in more detail as the project advances. Go up a slide. So again, as I'm sure you're aware that the project is located at the intersection of Main Street and Cedar Street, Route 135 and Route 85. They're both state numbered routes, but they're both under local jurisdiction, so there's no Mass DOT involvement with the project. Our study area that we looked at for our assessment included the intersections that we felt would accommodate the majority of traffic. That's the intersection of Main Street with Cedar Street and Grove Street, the signalized intersection of West Main Street with Main Street and Wood Street, and then the 2 driveway intersections that would serve the project. We looked at traffic volumes. We looked at them on a daily basis. We looked at the weekday morning, the weekday evening, and the Saturday midday. And those are the time periods that we typically drill down on because it's the busiest time for both residential traffic as well as commercial traffic. We looked at crash data, very low crash occurrences typically in the area, particularly at the driveways that exist today. At Main Street, we're looking at around 1 crash per year. And then on the Cedar Street driveway, it was a little bit higher, about 1.5. Looked at vehicle speeds, no issues with respect to sight lines. With respect to the traffic itself, we rely on data that's published by what's known as the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or the ITE. And what the ITE does is it develops rates that tells us how much traffic a project will generate based on its size.
And there are two components here. There's the residential component and then also the commercial component. As you can see in the morning, evening, and Saturday, the residential component generates anywhere from about 30 to 45 vehicles per hour. That's ins and outs. The retail, pretty low generator in the morning, only 16 trips, and then about 40 on a Saturday and during the weekday evening. Now, some of those retail trips are passed by in nature. They're already traveling along the corridor. So then that typically is 25 to 35%. When you net all of that out, what it tells us is that this project during the busy peak hours is expected to generate about 41 new trips in the morning, about 60 in the evening, weekday evening, then about 76 on a Saturday midday. So it's about a car a minute. Typically, it's about a car entering every other minute and a car exiting every other minute. Next slide. I think one thing that's important to keep in mind here is that this isn't a virgin undeveloped site. It has historically housed a fairly large pharmacy. And what we did is, we ran the trip generation for the pharmacy that has been on the site historically, just to kind of give an understanding as to how much additional traffic is expected based on what has historically occurred on site. And just not to overstate the trips, we actually applied a high 50% pass by to the pharmacy trips. So these are half of what the ITE would say unadjusted. And as you can see, on a weekday level, it's about 60 trips total over a 24-hour period. During the busy commuter hours, it's essentially a wash, 4 more trips in the morning, 1 more in the evening. On a Saturday, it actually does less traffic than a pharmacy would generate on a daily basis. And again, those peak hour volumes during that midday are still, fairly consistent. So in comparison to what was typically out there when this project site was a pharmacy, it's not a whole lot of difference during the busy hours. Last slide. So really, our recommendations are focused primarily on access. We're recommending that the 2 existing driveways on Cedar Street, the northern and southern driveways that feed into the existing parking lot, both be closed and with sidewalk across them, and that the driveway would be relocated as far north as possible where the residential home is today. On Main Street, the driveway today is already as far east as possible. It's at the eastern property limit, which is where it wants to be. We're recommending it gets maintained in that location. And then really the last recommendation is to bring the existing or proposed driveways into conformance with MUTCD design criteria, including painted center lines, stop signs, and painted stop bars, and ensuring that sight lines, again, are maintained in both directions. And that's really a high-level overview. I'll turn it over to Matt Mervin now to go through some of the landscape architecture.
Thank you, Sean. Again, Matt Merva with Bowler Engineering, for the record, landscape architect for the project. I know we already saw this slide, but I'll just dive into a little more detail on how we're treating it from a landscape standpoint. One thing you'll notice is that our building in the proposed condition is pulled away from the corner a little bit from Main and Cedar, more than it was before. That allows us for some green buffer that surrounds the building between the back of the existing sidewalk and the face of that building. So we've included ornamental vegetation in there, upright street trees along the Cedar Street edge. And then we're also providing a significant buffer along the northern edge to our northern abutter there that will include some evergreens, arborvitae, and lower growing materials as well. But really trying to create some green along the back of the sidewalk here in the downtown, while still creating that urban corner that the architecture really provides for. And Rich will get more into that detail in a moment. But we're also trying to engage the street on Main Street into our retail. You can see at the lower edge of the sort of C-shaped building, there is a covered colonnade, so to speak, and we'll get into more detail there, but that is open to the air with roof line above, and that accesses out onto the street directly. So there's some seating at the corner. There's access for pedestrians into the retail spaces at a few different locations along that edge. And as Eric mentioned earlier, you got to keep in mind that the grade is dropping along Main Street, along the face of our building, and then continues to drop along Cedar Street. So underneath that colonnade is where we have pedestrian level space that stays at the actual level of the retail and engages with the street in that way. So we deal with the grade creatively around that corner, but really try to bring a strong presence to that street corner. The courtyard space will be a mixture of seating opportunities for residents and patrons of the retail, along with a fire pit feature and some decorative landscape for seasonal interest year-round, and for buffering from the parking area that you see. Our one exposed parking area to the sky above is just those few spaces that are in gray there. All of the other parking on site is covered and really hidden from view. And that parking even is really back behind the southern wing of the building. So there really won't be much parking visible from the street. So that's the idea essentially behind the landscape. We're providing for multiple shade trees. We've got over 25 evergreen trees, ornamentals, 200 shrubs, 80 grasses, ground covers, perennials, variety of materials that'll help to provide that seasonal interest and year-long beauty. So we're excited about it and glad to answer any questions that come up, but I'll turn it over to Rich to run through the architecture.
Thank you, Matt. Members of the board, for the record, Richard Rankin Associates, for providing the architectural service for the project. As was mentioned, our team worked hard over the last year to create a project that meets the requirements of the zoning bylaws and one that we hope will be a catalyst for future development within the town center. During that time, as has been discussed, we met with town engineering, the building inspector, Hopkinton Fire, the historical commission, and so on. And we've worked to pay homage to the architectural vernacular of this historic town of Hopkinton and an effort to create a mixed-use building that fits into this prominent corner within the town center. We'll get into a little bit more of some of that homage, if you will, in upcoming slides. We started to create an animation that traverses westward on Main Street, beginning at the town common and ending at the intersection of Main and Cedar Streets. This was done to show the context of the existing streetscape and relative proportions of the buildings within it. We start with a view of the Presbyterian Church. And let me just get this running for you. Hopefully it's fairly smooth. We've had some issues with Zoom, but start off at the Presbyterian Church, past Masonic Lodge, Middlesex Bank, Bill's, the Town Hall, past some restaurant storefronts, barbershop, a two-story mixed-use building, and the Central Public House next door, and then our building that makes its way to the corner and around down Cedar Street. As you can see, the height of the building is, with our facade and cornice, is similar to that of the adjacent mixed-use building up the street. This is due with some assistance from the declining grade down Main Street, but hopefully it gives a flavor of what life is like without the drugstore and what it could look like. And the scale of the building relative to the existing buildings on the north side of Main Street. We think it fits very well, and especially under the first floor retail component, which engages and activates the streetscape along with the transparency at the arched entranceway that allows interesting views into the courtyard area and breaks up the massing of that facade. Additionally, as has been discussed, we've got that wider setback at the street curb line, which was installed as part of the realignment work at the corner there, and it's been landscaped effectively. Again, some facts and figures. I'll go through these quickly. The building, 75,000 square feet on 3 floors, including 6,800 square feet of retail. At a lower level of parking that is partially below grade. We do have 60 residential units planned and made up of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. In total, there's 89 covered residential parking spaces and 33 public spaces for a total of 122. Starting with the lower level, we have a controlled access off of Cedar Street, accessing 53 assigned residential spaces, including accessible spaces. We do have 2 circulation corridors which provide vertical connectivity to the upper floors. There's amenities, including bike storage for tenant use and maintenance and mechanical spaces for building operations. Additionally, we have areas allocated for the storage and removal of trash. On the first floor, we have retail spaces shown here in purple, violet. Our courtyard, the 32 spaces of public parking, including accessible spaces. This level also contains 36 residential parking spaces under cover. The plan indicates in yellow the covered walkways that allow public access to the retail space and also the main elevator course. Visible on this plan, as it has been discussed, is that generous landscape buffer with public space amenities between the existing curb and on both Main and Cedar Streets. The second floor contains 28 residential units of varying configurations and the circulation corridors and egress stairways. The third floor, get it up, contains 32 units, similar to the second floor. The Main Street view shows the efforts that we made to adjust the massing of the building to create the sense that the building was perhaps built over time, and that by breaking down the facade into smaller, distinct elements, we reduce the overall perception of size. The building's focal point at the corner with distinctive elements of brick and pronounced cornice and pilasters serve to anchor the project. We've got recurring facade elements with arched windows, pilasters, accentuated cornices, and brackets that serve to add rhythm to the length of the facades. And then in between, we have recessed infill portions with larger windows and Juliet-style balconies set back in an effort to reduce the building massing and create a more fitting scale. We've carried similar treatments along the Cedar Street elevation, which falls away dramatically as one proceeds down north on Cedar Street. We have 2 levels of parking, 2 levels of apartment units over retail and a parking level and a lower level of residential parking. The evening view shows activation of the street with a focus on merchandising opportunities at the retail level along both Main and Cedar Streets with period accent lighting. This shows our proposed exterior materials consisting of a rusticated masonry base, storefront, brick veneer, composite siding and trim, and accentuated cornices and bracketry. These materials are similar on the Cedar Street elevation. This represents the north elevation, which is adjacent to 8 Cedar. And this east elevation is adjacent to Central Public House with its 2 wings and central courtyard. During our meetings with Historical, we got feedback, and it was received very positively, which was very well received on our end as well. There's a desire from some commission members to bring historic elements from the town's existing vernacular and former buildings from the past to the project where possible. So the following slides are kind of response to those requests. First, we took cues from 2 factory buildings that were once a driving force to the economy of the town. One, the DT Bridges and Company boot manufactory, the other, the Thompson boot factory. They were large buildings within the town with elements included rusticated stone bases and detailed pilasters and bracketry and the use of lap siding. Another building we took inspiration from is the town hall with its masonry pilasters, arched windows, and detailed cornice treatment. Additionally, we intend to use period architectural lighting fixtures on the Main and Cedar facades to accentuate the architectural features of the building. And lastly, we looked toward some iconic architecture of the former high school at 85 Main to draw cues from the use of brick and again, the arched windows and stone-based materials, all of which we hope addresses some of the historical commission's concerns and the desire for historical precedents. With that, it really concludes our presentation. At this point, we'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. The development team together looks forward to moving the forward project through design review and addressing any comments along the way. And we thank you again for letting us present.
Thanks, Richard. So I think what I'd like to do now is, John, if you could give a staff report and as a next step.
Sure, thank you. So I'm going to start off by saying this corner of downtown is going to be a really important corner. You have anchors in downtown. When you have an intersection that's your downtown, the corners are your anchors. Right now we've got 2 gas stations, a vacant pharmacy, and an existing pharmacy. So this is going to dictate, and I'm not saying this development necessarily or the design or anything like that, but what goes in this place is going to dictate what Hopkinton's downtown looks and feels like into the future. So I want the board to really, and I know I don't have to tell you this, but I feel like I have to, otherwise it's going to, sit in my head. I want the board to really think about it, consider that, and just really kind of put it in that context of like, this could really set in motion what Hopkinton's downtown is for the next 15, 20, 30 years and beyond that. That being said, it's mixed use, it's residential. To get downtowns activated, you need to put people downtown. So residential is always one of the things that you want to do. Retail on the ground floor is also something you want to do to bring foot traffic in, to have a larger tax base, to give the people who are now living downtown some place to go, something to do. So that's why this type of development isn't a by right use in our zoning, because that is the type of development that Hopkinton has decided they want in their downtown. So I just kind of want to put that out there for the board to consider and just think about. It would replace a 1-story pharmacy / convenience store / stationary store. So you'd have some more uses in here than we did before. You'd have more people, walking around, using it and making it more active, giving it the downtown a better feel. And then, pedestrian access, traffic impacts, all of these things really need to be considered with this type of development. It's significantly larger than what's on there currently. Like I said, it's the first corner in downtown to really kind of be redeveloped. So we want to make sure that all of those things are considered so that you have that precedent for any future developments on the other corners. And then, finally, the design of the building is also important, and the planning board has a say in that. So the facade, the materials, the architecture, all of that, I want the board to really think about and consider as they review this and talk to people in the community about it, and talk to the applicant and the applicant's team. All of those things are really important to consider, which I know, but I kind of have to say it is my job. So those are my comments. I'm not going to go into the fire department and health comments. You have those in your memo. Those are a little bit more technical, a little bit more detailed. But in terms of just planning principles, being the planning board, this is a type of development that can potentially transform downtown, because it's something we don't have. It's new, it's modern, it's bringing people to downtown, and I just want the board to think about it in that context, and where they want downtown to go, and what they want it to look like in the next 15, 20 years, because this will definitely impact that.
Thanks, John. So what I would like to do is, typically part of our outline is a site walk, and I think I'd like to try to schedule a site walk. And I'd almost, if you noticed, I didn't open the public hearing at the beginning. If there's pressing questions from the board, that's okay. We can take those questions. But ideally, we haven't had a peer review consultant start the work on this. So I was thinking we could schedule a site walk, and then we could get into the meat of the discussion, open the public hearing at the next meetings, not the one in when we talk about MBTA next week, but the one after that, get into the meat of the discussion. But if there's any pressing questions from the board, I'm willing to. You should voice those now while they're fresh in your mind. Go ahead, Matthew.
Thanks. For a lot of the reasons John mentioned, very excited about prospects here. I appreciate the slide that shows the inspiration for the architecture. One of the things that jumped out watching the animation was kind of the jump from what's currently there and it to the start of the building, and it did look modern and more contemporary. And did look. I was wondering. So the brick on the corner looks a little bit more in line with a lot of the inspiration that was shown, town hall, etc. But the intention is for the rest of the building to be as it's shown right now with the like the vinyl siding or whatever that is. Is that true, or are you looking to try and blend that in more with the adjacent buildings or the historic context?
Yeah, I think right now the thinking is that the corner is special, and we were going to utilize a masonry veneer on that portion, and then really the rest is it's really a lap siding or a clapboard siding of a composite nature, to look real, but it's actually composite so that it holds up to the weather for a long time, very low maintenance. And then the same with the trim work. It's a composite material that that's going to hold up, and we've got some cornices to build, so they may have to be preformed at some level. But yeah, those are really the main finishes on the exterior that we were planning currently, and we understand that brick and stone and so on may be desirable, and then I think there's some discussion that we can have with regard to that.
Yeah, Rich, I think also worth mentioning is it's a little difficult to render some of the actual details, but like that cornice detail really is a blend with that building to the side, the solid surface, the historic lighting. It's difficult to make a rendering look as soft as maybe it is. So would certainly look forward to kind of doing a zoom in on some of those different cross sections to kind of explain the thought process. But not much of the building or any of the building is meant to look in a contemporary nature.
Yeah, and as we go forward, this is there's a lot of detailing to do in this building going forward, certainly, and these tend to evolve as until they're built. We're still designing, so there's certainly room for more detail and detailing of the building as we move forward.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing any updates as we talk more about it.
Elise, go ahead.
Thank you. I live in downtown right near this, so I appreciate how much detail you guys have put into this. I'm probably in the minority here, but I actually like a more modern look in downtown. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say in future meetings about the details you were just talking about with Matthew. My question is about parking. I like that you guys are adding more parking than required, but have you given any thought? Are there going to be certain parking spots that are blocked off? Is each unit going to have an assigned spot? I'm more worried about overflow parking going into the smaller streets. I live off Walcott Street, and if there's ever a big event in downtown, the parking goes all the way down. And I was just curious if you had any plans or thoughts on overflow parking.
The residential parking units will be kind of deed restricted to specific units. So we've got a kind of a residential component of parking that will be addressed, and then the remaining parking is intended for not only public parking but also for that retail tenant mix.
So will there be designated guest spots for the residential units?
There will be.
But we do have additional spaces beyond what's required by zoning for the retail. Not a lot, but my recollection is in the 6 to 8 spaces that would be utilized for, you know, potential visitors and so on. There's accessible spaces too, which, you know, they're certainly only for use by those who need accessibility. But we do have extra spaces within the covered parking assigned to the residential for guests.
Okay, thank you.
While if anybody's queuing up any more questions while that's happening, I'd like to schedule a site walk. Typically, we try to get a consensus. We typically try to do these Saturday morning. What is before we do that? When is this going to be on the agenda next, John?
November 4th, if the applicant would like to continue to the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
So that gives us this Saturday or the following Saturday. So it gives us the 26th or November 2nd. Does one of those days work better or worse for board members?
From memory, I think the Saturday is slightly better if we can keep it early.
No, but the Saturday, the 26th or Saturday, November 2nd, is any preference?
26th is better. My daughter's got an away game on the 2nd, I believe.
Anyone else?
I can do either.
All right.
I can do either as well.
I never know my kids' sports schedule till like the Wednesday or Thursday before. They play AU basketball and the schedule doesn't come out till Wednesday or Thursday for the weekend tournaments. So I'm always not sure. But let's shoot for I'm not sure who would somebody be available for a site walk on the applicant's behalf on the Saturday, September 26th?
Available certainly for the 26th and likely for the 2nd, but we'll make sure that we've got, if not me or John.
Second, if you can, 26, yeah.
We'll be able to be there.
Typically we try to do these in the morning so we can have the rest of the day. 8:30 or 9 o'clock work?
8 a.m. is great.
Parker, you'd like 8? Anyone else have a preference?
I'd prefer 9. My daughter has 8 a.m. soccer.
Yeah, I coach 8 a.m. soccer too for my son.
I'll bend to the will of the board.
I prefer 9 a.m. because my boys are 14 and they don't wake up at 6 a.m. anymore. So does 9 a.m. on Saturday, September 26th work?
Yes, it works for me.
Works for me.
All right. And the applicant, does that work for you guys?
Yes, it does.
All right. We obviously know where the site is. Where would you recommend us park? Like we park on the street?
In the lot.
Probably right in the larger lot.
The upper one near Central Public House?
Probably come in on the Cedar Street
Cedar Street side is open, yeah.
Okay, Cedar Street side.
Through the chair, I'll also just mention there's the public parking lot behind 2535 Main Street.
Yep.
Next to Muffin House.
Yep.
I also have a question before we kind of wrap this up. If I could, please.
Kathleen, we haven't opened the meeting for public comment yet.
Okay.
We were hoping to save all the public comments for next week. John, do I have to open the public comment to take a comment?
So, excuse me. The public hearing was open back on September 23rd when we opened the hearing, and it was just continued. So the public comment period is open, so people can submit emails and letters. It's up to the board if you want to take a comment in the meeting.
Kathleen, I was just concerned prior to the meeting that we'd have a lot of public comment, and I didn't want to have that
Okay, no
done
problem.
tonight and tomorrow. But no, you can go ahead. There's it doesn't look like there's hundreds of people on, so feel free. Introduce your name and address
Thank
and
you.
ask your question.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Kathleen Reel. I own the property at 8 Cedar Street. So I'm really just the abutter towards the northern end of this property that's being proposed. And I just had a question regarding, first of all, I wanted to know a little bit more about the underground parking. Is it completely enclosed, or is it kind of an open underground parking? Are there, like, I guess, open sides to it, or is it completely underground?
Yeah, the goal is to have it open with, security grills at the lower level and whatever guardrails and safety measures on the mid-level. Obviously, in the evening when cars are driving and parking, we've got to deal with the headlights and those kinds of things as well. So it's a work in progress with regard to exactly how we're going to screen the parking from the exterior, but that's something that we have to work on.
Yeah, is this at 8 Cedar Street is probably about 2 feet off the property line. And there is a residential unit in that building. So I just have some concerns about that, because I originally thought that during the Historical Society meeting, you had said that all the entrances were going to be on Main Street, and now they're saying they're on Cedar Street. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And also I just had some issues about some, water, any kind of water control, any kind of, drainage, that type of stuff, but that's probably down the road a little bit.
We're going to have a peer review consultant that the town hires to review this project for that exactly. And so we're going to have a lot of discussion about that topic.
Okay.
And I think we're going to have that over at least maybe probably start at the next meeting. And really to get into a lot of depth of that right now we're going to talk about it again. So I'd prefer not to dig into too much of that.
Yeah, I understand. I know it's just preliminary right now. And just, the proximity of the building where I am at 8 Cedar Street is, like I said, about 2 feet off the property line. So, it's very close. So I just want to make sure that it's something that, is it going to reduce the value of my property? So.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just in response to Kathleen's question, we are certainly sensitive and would welcome the opportunity to kind of work with you. We've kind of pre-developed a screening plan along that side with kind of your property in mind. So if there's any additional questions, you can steer them towards John and I, and we'd be happy to meet with you and see what else we might be able to do. But the thought is there to make sure that we're being a good neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So I think you guys indicated you had something like 6,800 square feet of retail. How many shops do you think are going to fit in the 6,800 square feet?
I'll deal with that, Brendan. We are not sure right now. We're thinking it's going to be maximum 3, most likely 2.
Yeah, because it sounded pretty small to me, so I was just curious. So okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'd like to just so we're good on the site walk, 9 a.m. for the 26th. I had a couple things I don't want to dig into tonight, but some things off the top of my head. I think it would be good for the applicant to do. I think there's software that does this. I'm hoping you guys have software that does this, so it's not a big effort. But kind of a shade analysis for any adjacent properties, like what impact is this building going to have on the abutters in terms of shade and like their house being blocked from the sun at various points in the day. Another comment I have is this drawing shows the street on both both corners with no telephone poles. what's the reality going to be when it's actually built? Is it going to be like this? I don't think that's the case. I think there's going to be telephone poles, and I know where you're proposing one of the driveways. There's, I think, 2 telephone poles right now on Cedar Street. How is that all going to work out? And I agree. I think some general comments about the building materials. I think anything like this downtown in such a high profile area is going to be super important. And I think you guys have done a good job. So I'm not saying you got to, I think like from my point of view, it looks good. I think the town wants it to look really good. And so I'm not an expert on that. I know we have a design review board and everything that helps with that. I think the proposal here is, but I think that's important. So just keep that in mind. Those are the only things I had to leave with at this point in the meeting. Does anyone have any other comments, or I'd like to continue this at this point if we can.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Lucia.
I think in terms of the sidewalk, what I'm hoping we can get a feel for is what, as a pedestrian, what you're going to see, because I think Kathleen has a very good point as a direct abutter, but that gets me thinking too about the pedestrians walking along what I thought was underground parking, but really seems to be, you know, sort of at grade. And so I think as we walk, if someone can give us an idea of what we're looking at or what we would be looking at given this proposal, I think that would be helpful.
I think as I understand it, the site as it exists today, the grade elevation change from like the lowest corner to the tallest spot to the tallest corner is 15 feet. So when they're saying the Cedar Street side is the lowest side, so that entrance would be the underground parking, but really on that side, it's at street level. And it's, if you're on the side near the Central Public House, it's considered underground because that side is so much higher. That's how that's my understanding. But yeah, I think that for us all to kind of understand the grades and how that will impact the site on a sidewalk, it'd be good for us to just see it in person.
Good, yeah, and I think we potentially could put together some site sections that might help explain that a bit as well.
All right, terrific. So if there's no, like, we're going to get into the meat of this at our next hearing on November 4th. So unless there's any more immediate questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to November 4th. And the decision deadline, John, what would be a good date for that?
So the site plan doesn't need a decision deadline.
Okay.
Because it's 90 days after the close of the public hearing, and the stormwater management permit. I believe we agreed to October 28th already, but obviously need to continue that. So November 12th.
Okay, let me see if I
can. The
can.
next meeting.
All right, let me try to make a motion here. If I make a mistake before anybody moves the motion, John just can affirm I say it correctly. I'd like to entertain a motion to continue the public hearing and stormwater management permit review to November 4th, and continue the extend the stormwater management permit decision deadline to November 12th.
So you're continuing the hearing of the site plan and stormwater management permit.
Yeah.
And then the decision deadline of the stormwater management permit.
Yep.
Yep.
So moved.
Thanks, Michael.
Second.
All right, terrific. Roll call vote. Elise Smayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. So we will see you on November 4th. So our next meeting is so to continue with the agenda. I don't know if we have anything to talk about zoning board of appeals or other notices. We typically don't discuss those much. So unless anyone has anything related to that, our next meeting is next Monday to talk about MBTA communities. And then we'll have a regularly scheduled planning board meeting on November 4th. So we've got kind of 3 weeks in a row here. So hopefully we can work through some of the agenda, some of our items at those next 2 meetings. And what is our meeting schedule for December into like January 1st?
So December, we have a meeting on the 2nd and on the 16th. And then we have not scheduled the 2026 meetings yet. So I will put that on an agenda to schedule.
All right. So those are the only 2 minutes. So we're going to have, before the end of the year, we're going to have MBTA communities on the 28th, November 4th. November, is that the 20th? No, November 18th, then December 2nd, then December 16th. So we've got four more meetings before the end of the year.
So November 18th is special town meeting. So we are
so no meeting that night. So we've got 4 more meetings before the end of the year. All right.
Rob, is the goal of next week's meeting to finalize everything we need for special town meeting, given the timing?
We are in a time crunch, yes. I don't think we have time to kick the can further down the road, but John, maybe you have more.
I mean, you could continue to the 4th, but that's the last opportunity to make a recommendation unless you schedule another meeting. So, I mean, it would be in the best interest of me and my sanity to finalize it next week, but I understand if there's some more conversations that need to happen. So it's really to open the hearing, get feedback, have the board discuss the 3 options, and then try and figure out a path forward that the board would look to do on those options, 1, 2, or all 3, hopefully not all 3, but 1 or 2, sending them to town meeting. And then we'd have to craft the actual motion language to identify which one. And then, town meeting would choose the language depending on which option they would want to go with.
I know the ZBA had an issue with too many people trying to dial into a Zoom call. I know we
Got that
had a lot
covered.
of. You got it covered?
Yeah, I talked to IT and they set me up with the there's one license that we have for a webinar style. So that's what the meeting is going to be like. It's just going to be the board members visible, and then the public will be, the audience, I guess, for lack of a better term. They'll still be able to raise their hand and comment. They just won't be visible on the screen until they are allowed to be visible. And that's a function of allowing more people onto the call.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. We're at the time of the meeting where I'd like to adjourn for this evening. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved to motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Parker. Roll call vote. Elise Smayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Michael King,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Karen Wills,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati. Looks like Vic.
Yes.
There you are. And Rob Benson is yes. Thanks, everybody. We got through quite a bit in an expedient manner, so that's always good. I'll see everybody